the day before doesn't feel real at the moment because of the situation that we've all faced around the world in this horrible, horrible pandemic that's happened in this COVID world that we live in now. And to think that just 3 months ago that this series would even happen during the month of July was unthinkable. But things happen and the situation improves, and we're at this point now where this series can take place. So how did we get here? So, obviously we know that the series was supposed to be May and June, but obviously the COVID situation made that impossible. And the series looked very likely to be scrapped because West Indies had the CPL in August, and also England had the Pakistan series coming up later this year, which luckily also is taking place. So this series looked very, very unlikely to even have a chance happening this summer at least. There was even talk that the series could be played in the West Indies, in the Caribbean. But luckily, that the situation has improved. We have seen other sports come back, such as the English Premier League, snooker, horse racing in the UK. And we're at the point where now the cricket season can begin. And the series between England and West Indies is going to happen between the 8th of July, which is tomorrow, and the 28th of July, which will end the 3-match test series. But where is this series going to be taking place? Because obviously, because of the situation, we cannot have the normal matches at the Lords or the Oval or Edgbaston, which are great venues in England. But there are 2 venues that are going to be used throughout the whole summer. It's either going to be played at Southampton or Manchester. Tomorrow's match is going to be at Southampton. The reason why these 2 venues are being used is because there are hotels right on the ground or right next to the ground, which makes it easier to have this biosecure network and go to the venue and just straight back to the hotel. That's how the West Indies English series is going to be, and how the Pakistan series later on is going to be. So that's how the series is going to be. So the first test is going to be here, and then the second test will be, and the third test will be in Manchester. So the first test will be in Southampton. So what happened in the warm-up? So how did the warm-ups happen even? So obviously the West Indies could not play any series against any county team, which they planned to. I think they were playing Kent, the idea was, but that's not going to happen now. Obviously because the county season has not started at all, and that wouldn't work in a biosecure thing. So they've had to have a big squad come over to England and basically have a series against each other, a match against each other even. And how did the West Indies do in that match? It was a Brathwaite 11 versus a Holder 11. And actually, the interesting thing was the batsmen who did well were the batsmen who did well last time they played England in England. Boris Brathwaite scored big, and Shea Hope scored big, and even Roston Chase as well. And then you would think that those are the 3 key players, because they've played England a lot, and they've scored big centuries, both, especially Brathwaite and Hope in England, and Chase has scored a big century against England in the West Indies. And their bowling, though, is their key thing, which could be the difference for the West Indies if they have to win this series. If the batsmen, like those 3 and others, can build them a good score, they have a good chance with Kemar Roach, Jason Holder, Shannon Gabriel, Joseph, and Chimara Holder. Those are 5 bowlers who they will put a lot of hope into to try to see if they can win this series. They have the potential to take 20 wickets, and if you look at series before, they have done this before against England, a lot of these bowlers, especially Kemar Roach, which I think is the key to holding the England batting together, it is, and if they can get through that England batting. But what about for England? So what have they been doing? So they played a match between a Ben Stokes 11 and versus Josh Butler 11. And you're thinking, where's Joe Root in this? And the simple answer is he's going to be missing the first test. He's become a father for the second time. So he's going to be missing this first test, which is a joyous occasion. So hopefully, good congratulations to him. And hopefully he'll have a great time with his newborn. So that means that Ben Stokes is going to be the captain, which is going to be very, very interesting. He was obviously the man of the summer, man of the year 2019. I don't think anyone can dispute or argue with that. And this will be very interesting because this will be the first time he will be Test captain as well, to see how he does in this situation. And it also leaves an open space in the batting lineup. It does. We're not saying Joe Root can be dropped or something, but the batting is very interesting at the top of the order. It'll be a very inexperienced top four. It'll be in international cricket. So we will see that Joe Burns is returning from injury, so he will open the batting. And then Dom Sibley will probably be in number 2. Will probably be his opening partner. And then Zach Crawley, who's played number 3 a lot in county cricket, will be moved down to number 3 probably. And Joe Denley will be number 4 for England. So that'll be interesting to see how that dynamic of that top 4 will be. Now, Pope and Stokes will definitely be 5 and 6, but which order is going to be interesting, because I personally believe that Pope is probably his best position will probably be 5, and I think Ben Stokes eventually should be number 6, not because his batting isn't good enough. His batting, as we've seen, is superb in any format, but I think the workload for him would be a lot to ask for him to keep batting at 5 and bowl so many overs and take even the captaincy today, but obviously the vice captain in normal circumstances. There's a lot. I know he's a great batsman, great bowler, great fielder, great slipper, everything, and he has very high expectations of himself. But that will be very interesting to see if he's batted number 5 or number 6. But for this match, probably doesn't matter. But long term, I would say that should be what England should be doing. So the question is now who are the bowlers going to be for England? And this is really, really interesting because they have 5 pace bowlers. They have picked in their 13-man squad. So that is Chris Wokes, Stuart Broad, Jofra Archer, Wood, and Jimmy Anderson. And in English conditions, they're going to, and they've also picked the one spinner, obviously, and it's a really interesting person. It's called Dominic Bess, who's been picked. And I'll explain why that's interesting in a moment. But let's look at the pace bowlers. So there's 2 lines of thought that I've been hearing that people have been thinking about in this series. Because it's going to be overcast and it's going to be English conditions, in English weather, it's not going to be the nicest weather, it's going to be overcast, that they could go for all pace attack. So which bowler do they not pick? Pace bowler do they not pick? Because they've got 5. Or they could go for, which is probably more likely, and I prefer more, is 3 pace bowlers and 1 spinner. So that's Dominic Bess is the spinner, so he would pick himself. And then the 3 pace bowlers would be interesting. I think Jimmy Anderson will definitely be bowling. I think Stuart Broad would probably be picked. So the question is, will it be Chris Wokes, Jofra Archer, or Wood? And that is a very difficult decision to work out which one's going to be picked. I would rather go a bit more bold and probably like to see maybe either Jofra or Wood play with Wokes and then one of Anderson and Broad in the rotation, because they're all going to get a go in this series at some point. In this series or Pakistan series, so they're all going to get and maybe try different combinations, because in English conditions you can do that. But I really don't know who's going to be picked in those 3 of if it's 3 of those 5 or 4 of those 5. It'll be very interesting. The only person I think is guaranteed to be picked for that first test is Jimmy Anderson, and then the others you can all make an argument for. And interestingly, Stuart Broad is 15 wickets away from getting 500 wickets, so he'll be desperate to play to get that record, which will be amazing if he can do that by the end of this series. But he'll definitely probably get this done before the end of the summer. So that's going to be interesting. The key thing for the West Indies to win this series is they have the bowling attack. I think most people think the bowling attack is there. Do they have the batsmen? That's going to be the problem and the key to them trying to win this series. And that we just don't know at the moment. That's the thing that when I talk to West Indies fans and the people from the Caribbean, they said that is their biggest fear. If they can get a good score, they have the bowling attack. And that'll be interesting to see how England do as well. Their batsman is going to be interesting because they have a new top 4. The top 4 is actually quite experienced, it is. And in the international level, so to see how they do in this type of environment and series is going to be very interesting. And now Joe Root not being there for the first test, how that impacts on Ben Stokes, and there's so many factors which we don't know what will happen. It's going to be very, very interesting to see what this series is going to be. Now, personally, the one I think is going to happen, I think the series is going to be much closer than people think. There's a couple of reasons why. Firstly, they used the Dukes for both England and the West Indies. And I think that helps their pace attack it does. And I think English conditions actually suit a lot of the West Indian bowlers. So I think that's one thing. Secondly, I think the with the lack of matches that either side is there isn't that real difference in that home advantage. Okay, it's the home condition, but they're not using it because they're not playing so many matches. So that's going to be really interesting to see how that pans out. It does. So that's going to be how the series could pan out. I'm not sure who's going to win. Who's going to win? I suspect England would just about sneak it. But if you look at series before, England have really struggled against the West Indies. They don't win these series outright easily. If you think about the holders of the cup at the moment, they are the West Indies. They won in the West Indies. And then the West Indies won against England. And then if you think about the series before when they came here in England, we remember that great chase in Headingley where Hope and Brathwaite scored 300 odd in the last day to chase down a famous victory there. And that was really, really big for them. It was, and England did win that series 2-1, but it wasn't the whitewash that people were suspecting or expecting at the start of the series. So England West Indies series are much closer than people say because they look on paper and they think that's how it's going to pan out. So I suspect England might sneak it, but I don't think it'll be easy. Even if they win 3-0, I don't think it'll be close. I think it will be close, sorry, in this series. So that's my preview. Do say what you think, and thank you for listening. Bye.